Closet, a Todd Mills mystery. Book 1. Author R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher Scribble Pub. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 26. It was almost noon when Todd neared his towering condominium building, a monolithic structure that shot through the trees and over the neighborhood, and he began to slow, wondering what or who might be awaiting him. As he drove around the northern edge of Lake Calhoun, he stared up at the beige structure, tried to pinpoint the exact location of his apartment. Rawlings and Lewis could have received a second search warrant and might be tearing apart his place yet another time. Or he realized they might simply be waiting downstairs, ready to arrest him and take him into custody. On the other hand, in a very real way, the media could be worse. Would the likes of Channel 7 and other stations be swarming around his building again, hoping to catch a glimpse of the marauding Todd Mills and paying him as the next homo killer, a la Jeffrey Dahmer? Turning right onto Dean Parkway, Todd expected to see television crews and newspaper reporters lingering outside his building, not to mention that religious fanatic and the radical fairies. As he approached, he scanned the boulevard, knowing that if he'd been working this, he'd be camped out front. But as far as he could tell, there wasn't anyone, not even one of the Channel 7 vans with the antenna perched on top. He turned left into the drive, and with a bit of surprise and a lot of relief, he drove slowly past the entrance and up the ramp to the second floor garage. Perhaps there were no reporters here, not yet anyway. Or maybe they'd been here and missed him. Maybe they'd all rushed downtown, assuming they'd catch a glimpse of Todd under arrest. Whatever, but there'd be a mess of them later. And Todd knew what he should do: pack a suitcase and leave. But where would he go? He couldn't leave town, obviously. Not only would that rile the police to no end, it would make him look guilty as hell. He could go to a downtown hotel for a week or so, but he'd probably be recognized by the staff. Word would eventually get out. What about Janice's place? Todd opened his window, leaned out to a keypad, and pressed in the code. The doors automatically eased open, and he proceeded into the dimly lit garage and to his space, which was at the far end of this level. Shutting off the engine and climbing out, he considered how perfect hiding at Janice's would be. The police could be apprised of his whereabouts, and Janice could shield him at least until things began to die down. But how long would that be? And then, as he locked his car door, it came at him. Yet again, that wave of fear that slapped him. They weren't really going to arrest him, were they? They couldn't, could they? He shuffled across the garage, a broad concrete space that was only half full. It was amazing to Todd that his life could be so quickly and totally ruined, that everything he had worked for could fall apart so quickly. He took a deep breath, choked, wanted to cry. He just wanted to hear Michael's laugh again, that burst of life that said no matter what, everything would be okay. If only Todd had given it all up, and the two of them had taken off, disappeared into the Greek islands as they had often fantasized. Michael had wanted to escape the daily grind and have Todd completely to himself, while Todd had merely wanted to find a place where he could disappoint no one, where his sexuality was of no consequence. Yet it had only been big dreaming, big talk. The escape, of course, had never taken place, and Todd had never been able to bring the two, his public life and his sexual one, into harmony. Now this disaster was the apparent punishment. Actually, wasn't it something just like this that he'd feared all along? A sound somewhere behind quickly drew him out of his self-pity. Midway through the garage, Todd hesitated and turned around. He glanced toward the garage doors, saw them still closed tightly. He then scanned the vast chamber. There was no car coming or going, and there was no one walking about it, at least not that he could see. A second later, he heard it again, a long, slow noise, like the sound of a shoe moving slowly over cement. He tensed inside. Someone was in here, and just as soon as he realized that, he understood that someone was watching him. As he quickly made his way to the steel door that led into the elevator lobby, Todd pulled out his key when he went to slip it into the lock. However, it would only go in about halfway. He pulled the key out, rammed it in again. Shit, he checked, saw that it was definitely the right one. He bent over and in a flash realized that someone had jammed the lock with a broken match or toothpick. There was a short, quick sound off to the left, and Todd glanced over and saw nothing but a row of cars. He hurried to the right, passed around the rear of a small van, and broke into a run. When he finally reached a second door, he rammed the key into the lock, pushed down on the handle, and bolted into a stairway. He shoved the door shut behind him, then turned and realized there was no elevator here. He checked the cool concrete block room and saw only a steel staircase that led down. Todd quickly started for the steps, then paused. He could now clearly hear steps in the garage, for whoever was trailing him was no longer making an effort at concealment. Someone was running toward the door, hoping to catch him, and as he stood on the first step, Todd stared at the door handle and watched as someone pushed it down. The door was locked, though, and the lever caught. All appeared fine, until there was the jingling of keys. His heart quivering, Todd spun, ready to bolt down the steps. Just as quickly, he stopped himself. All his life he'd been running. All his life he'd been hiding. He just couldn't do it anymore. That meant standing up to the truth, including this one. Todd spotted a light switch on the wall, rushed toward it, and flicked off the lights. In an instant, the stairwell was so deeply black that it took Todd's breath away. He groped for the wall and positioned himself behind the door. Seconds later, he heard a key turning and then sensed the door slowly opening. "Shit, it's pitch black," said a deep male voice. "Well, go on. We can't let him get away. He's in there somewhere." Recognizing the voices, Todd became so angry that he couldn't stop himself. He yanked the door back and lunged forward. Just as he suspected, he saw the black device cradled in the guy's arm. Not wasting a second, Todd grabbed for it. Someone screamed. A struggle ensued, and as soon as Todd had what he wanted, he rushed back across the small space and flicked on the lights. Holding up a video cassette, Todd said, "Gee, Mark, I hope you got my good side." "Shit, Todd," replied Mark Buchanan, huffing and clutching his camera. "I'm just doing my job." Cindy Wilson flicked back her blonde hair as she moved into the space and demanded, "Give it back, Todd." "Fat chance. You do know you're a suspect for this new murder, don't you?" "Cut the crap, Cindy. They found your hat by the body." "I was there. I was the one who found the body, and..." "Shit, Cindy. We worked side by side. You know me. There's no way in hell I killed anyone." "We all thought we knew you, Todd, but none of us even guessed you were gay." She let the words hang, then asked, "So what have you told the officials?" "Stop it. I know the routine. I taught it to you." "Todd, give me the tape. Or what? I'll do a piece on tonight's news on how you attacked us and stole a videotape. I really had no idea you were so violent." Todd's entire body tightened and he stared at her. At first he wanted to tell her to fuck off, but then he looked into her eyes and saw a reflection. His own. "Cindy, they've made you as desperate as I was." "What?" "I'm out of the loop, and I can see it now." "But you can't, can you? You're in it so deep you don't even realize it." "Todd, just answer a few..." "You want to succeed every bit as much as I did, don't you?" He hesitated, but then couldn't stop himself from saying, "What the hell are you trying to prove?" Clearly perturbed, she hesitated before asking, "Come on, Todd. What about a 5-minute interview? You can tell us your side. The pain of being closeted, how much you cared for Michael Carter, and you can keep that tape, Mark. You've got another one, right? Don't you?" "Right here," he said, patting his shoulder pack. "Forget it," replied Todd, shaking his head. "How did you two get in here, anyway?" It flashed through Todd's mind that someone in the building had given them keys. Maybe Bob, the security guard, had sold them a set, but then he looked at the steel door, saw the keys still dangling from the lock. "Ah, shit," muttered Todd, recognizing the round key ring and yanking it from the door. "Sorry, buddy," said Mark Buchanan. "I meant to return them to you last week." It was a complete set of Todd's own keys, which he'd given Mark Buchanan several weeks ago, so he could pick up a videotape. So how many other times had they gotten in? Todd said, "Were you two just in my apartment?" Cindy said, "What about..." "Fuck you were, weren't you?" Mark urged. "Todd, come on, let's not..." "Shut up, Mark, and get out of here. Both of you, before I call the police." "My party," sneered Cindy. "Wouldn't that make for some great TV?" "You bet it would," snapped Todd, "because I'm sure the cops would be interested to find your fingerprints all over my place, Cindy." Who knows? Maybe you even snuck into my place the other day. Maybe you took my Cubs hat and just sort of dropped it in the bushes so you could work that into your coverage. And now that I think about it, I bet the police would be really curious to find out just how far you'd go to further your career. Don't be ridiculous, Mark added. Cut it out, Todd. And Mark, I bet they'd want to hear just why you had an AIDS test a few weeks ago. Shit, Todd, I told you that in confidence. Exactly. What did you do in San Francisco that was causing you concern? Some dope and some swinging, wasn't it? Mixed crowd, right? Of course, unless you were anal receptive, you probably don't have too much to worry about. But I'm sure the police would want to know all about your sexuality, not to mention the fact that you've had an extra set of all my keys. After all, he said, lifting one in particular. This one's the key to Michael's. Todd glared at the two of them. So, I don't want to see anything on the news tonight about my apartment or about this little incident. Got it? Now, get out of here. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.